him and I called.
All right, good afternoon. I'd like to officially call to order this special commission workshop meeting. Roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Dollison?
Here.
Commissioner Mercer?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates?
Here.
And Mayor Birdsong.
Here. All right, this is a budget workshop for water, so I guess, is it going to be Gary or is it going to be you, T?
It's going to be both.
Start us off.
It's going to be both. Gary's going to do the bulk of this, but again, I thank you for the opportunity to have a special budget workshop this evening, specific to our Winter Haven Water, or what's more historically been known as our utility services budget. We carved this one out a little bit separately, and for the benefit of Commissioner Dollison, this is the first budget cycle we've gone through. We do this one a little bit separate from the rest of the budget because it comprises about $80 million of the overall city budget at the end of the day. Most of our major capital investments in a long-range CIP, the biggest dollar values sit within the utility fund. It's an independent proprietary or enterprise fund, so it's a little bit unique in that, so that's why we do this separately. I do want to just start off by saying, I had presented the budget, the overall budget to the commission, I think it was on July 17th. And in that budget, we had denoted a dollar value for the utilities budget. So when we got to the total value of the overall city budget of $296 million, that included what is in this budget presentation this evening. So the numbers that you're going to see this evening, they're more for, this process this evening is more to explain what's in the utilities budget, the major initiatives and projects, but those numbers are already reflected in what we presented in late or mid-July, I guess it would be. I also want to just kind of start off by saying that this budget is built around some proposed rate adjustments and connection fee adjustments. So at the end of the budget presentation this evening, we'll talk about some upcoming meeting dates that we have. In June and early July, Gary Hubbard, myself, and some other staff did briefings with the commission on some rate studies that we were doing. Those will be coming back to you at your second meeting in August for consideration on a first reading, and for a second reading at your first meeting in September. So the budget that's going to be presented this evening contemplates revenues based upon those rates and connection fee adjustments. Just to kind of answer the question ahead of time, what happens if those rates aren't approved or those connection fees aren't enacted as presented? Then that has a direct effect back on the overall capital improvement program of the next 5 years. So that CIP that really guides where we're going to invest dollars is built around what are those revenues coming in off of your user fees for water and sewer and reuse, as well as your connection fees, which are the charges that we assess on new development for their impacts on the system and our carrying capacity for them. So I just want to put that out there so there's a clear understanding of that. So everything that you see this evening is built around what those perceived revenues would be associated with those rate adjustments and connection fees. With that, I want to invite Gary Hubbard, Director of Winter Haven Water, to the podium to do the presentation this evening. Certainly we'll answer questions throughout. I have noted that his entourage, as they have self-proclaimed themselves, is here. So any questions that are of high technical nature that you want to zing at them, they had told me that they are perfectly prepared to answer those as well. Right, Mr. Pike? Absolutely. So with that, Gary, take it away.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. This presentation tonight is to basically have a discussion about where we're headed in the future and to talk about the budget for the coming fiscal year. So with that in mind, I'd like this to be a pretty much interactive discussion. Please feel free to stop me at any point to talk. City Manager and I will be kind of tag teaming our way through this presentation, so feel free to ask questions. Get my glasses on here. All right, so as with the overall city budget, everything that we do in the utilities department or the water department revolves around the pillars that have been established by the city commission. So for example, quality of life, how do we play into that? Well, if you look at our CIP and our projects, wetland restoration projects definitely fit into this quality of life because of the trail systems that will be associated with it, the recreational opportunities also associated with these nature parks, all affect quality of life. Community safety, well, if you think about it, you know, we provide water to nearly 100,000 people, and it's about safe drinking water and then protecting our environment from waterborne diseases. So these are the safety side of the issue. Infrastructure, that one's pretty obvious because the 5-year CIP budget is roughly $345 million. So there's a large capital investment being proposed. Then looking at responsible government, we have to make sure that we're doing this in a cost-effective manner so that we're protecting those funds that have been entrusted to us. And finally, environmental stewardship. That's, again, about protecting our natural resources. And as we build these nature parks that are associated with the Sapphire Necklace, we're really helping the long-term future of our natural resources. So some budget highlights. As city manager noted to start with, that we have briefed you on potential budget increases for water and sewer rates. 2.5% on water, 7.5% on sewer. They would become effective if approved at the meetings, upcoming meetings, October 1st of 2024. The new rate structure also includes a separate fee for the future of PRWC water and also the establishment of a separate repair and replacement fund. So this will be our beginning.
Gary, can
Yes, sir.
The 2.5%, we already have the 2.5%. So is that,
That's a status quo.
pardon me?
Status quo.
Status quo, okay.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Then on the connection fee side, we again looked at, this is all based on capital expenditures that's proposed, that our connection fees would increase to $38.58 on the water and $8,175 on the sewer. So, and I'll show you a comparison here in a few minutes. Well, we would propose that these fees become active January 1 of 2025.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following you. So the two fees that you're showing respectively, that's that 7.5% increase?
Now, this is different. This is on the connection fee side. So these were calculated differently.
So what do, and I don't want to get ahead of you, you're going to show us what they are now?
Yes.
And
Yeah, I'm going to show you here in just a minute.
So I don't want to get ahead of you.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
No problem. Like I said, I prefer this to be interactive, so no problem at all. So total budgeted water and sewer revenues, rate revenues, that's with the increases that we're just talking about, are projected to increase about 16.4 million, totaling roughly $52.9 million for FY25. We will continue working on a WIFIA loan application to help with the financing of the capital improvement program, primarily the new water resource facility. The tentative number that WIFIA has approved for us is $178 million, and that would be covering 49% of the cost. Now the question is, are we going to go WIFIA or not? The real issue is if WIFIA is only funding 49%, we still have to fund the other 51% somehow. And most likely that would be a revenue bond. And currently, for example, we issued revenue bonds back in December, and I believe that rate was about 3.5%. That's pretty close. Well, the current rate of WIFIA is 4.5%. So we'll make those decisions next year about whether we go WIFIA or whether we go revenue bonds. Moving on, the establishment of a repair and replacement program. We're allocating $3.9 million for those efforts. During the coming fiscal year, we'll be looking at that new water resource facility. How are we actually going to construct that facility? And can we get some easy wins right from the very start to help us down the road? So we'll be examining that, and then, of course, coming back to City Commission with thoughts on how we will proceed.
So Gary,
Yes, sir.
the new facility and the WIFIA loan and all of that, that's all intertwined, am I correct?
Yes, they're all
So-
tied together, yes.
Okay. My question is this. I know that ultimately we gotta have the facility. And so and again, maybe I should just let you go through this and then maybe I won't have no questions. Because I've got questions and I'm jumping ahead of what you're going to present. So I'm gonna just be quiet and let you
I am going to
finish.
talk in more detail about the water resource facility after we get into the capital portion of this.
Yeah, my question is, and this is gonna be the last one for a minute. The time frame from start to finish to construct that facility, what are we talking about? What's,
So we're going to construct this facility in phases. The initial first phase is planned to go to 12 million gallons per day, but we most likely will do that in phases also. So
how much time is a phase?
I think to answer your question overall, I would plan on 4 to 5 years.
Okay. And one, you good?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so 4 to 5 years. And so I know with the WIFIA loan, if we get that, you don't get it all at once. You get it as you need it. So you're going to tell us about that too, right?
If we went the WIFIA route, we have 5 years. They may stretch that as much as to 7 years. So as far as receiving disbursements from WIFIA, that should not be an issue.
Okay. One more question.
All right.
So based on what you're presenting to us, you're presenting to us based on the projection to get the WIFIA loan.
That's
Right.
part of it. That's correct.
Okay, because I'm just thinking out loud, if we don't get the WIFIA loan, then to come up with 100% of that just means that we've got to go that big a bond and.
Right.
That is correct.
So
we-
let me jump in for just a second if I can, Mr. Mayor. So WIFIA will fund 49% of the project, is Mr. Hubbard noted. The city it's a loan, so you're obligated to pay
Right.
that
Still
money
gotta pay
back.
it back.
You still have to pay it back. You still have to pay back whatever your source of revenue is for the 51%. It may be, and this is what we're assessing as we go through we have a progressive design build process for this project. So we will assess what needs to be done and how many bites do we need to take at this facility to advance it towards a full completion. It may be expand it to a certain capacity now, and then expand it again, and expand it again and again to get to the full capacity of what we think we'll need for the next 30, 40, 50 years. It may be a better approach for us, particularly if WIFIA interest rates are higher than what we could get through a traditional revenue bond, to do revenue bonds in lieu of a WIFIA loan, because you're gonna pay back 100% whether it's you're using WIFIA or not. You're still got to cover the full cost, and in doing that, you can break that up into maybe a couple different bonds. So let's say you're doing a project that's valued at $200 million, rather than do a one massive WIFIA loan, you may do 3 or 4 bond issuances timed when you need that money to give you a little more flexibility and latitude, and at the same time realize a better interest rate. Because once you take that WIFIA loan, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, you're allowed to request a reset on the interest rate one time if you have not taken any money from it.
That is correct.
So if you do it in smaller revenue bonds, and the interest rates go down, you're okay. If you do it a big bite of a WIFIA bond or WIFIA loan, and you begin taking some of that money, you're locked in at that rate, even if interest rates drop. So we're trying to navigate that in the best interest of our customers and our ratepayers. And that's the same thing that PRWC has done. You know, they did their WIFIA loan, but then they also got a loan that allows them to, okay, let's have a little flexibility in here and not pull money from that WIFIA loan until we see if we want to do a reset on the interest rate.
So that's what we would do.
The project itself doesn't change the cost of it. It's just the funding strategy. And so we're trying to be as economical and responsible as we possibly can in how we secure those funds to build it out. Personally, at this point in time, my thinking is it would be easier and probably less bureaucratic red tape involved to do revenue bonds to approach that project, because once you get the federal government involved, well, it's a lot of money that they will loan you. It is at their interest rate, that they've established, but there's a whole lot of hoops that you've got to jump through and compliance that you've got to do that you wouldn't necessarily have through other lending methods.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And there, if we go revenue bonds, then you're going to get all that money in one chunk. So, and then you spend it, just as quick as you can. You've got a few years you got to spend that money. So we'll be evaluating all the options and, of course, working with our financial advisors to try to hit the market at the right time to get the best rates. So we're not under a time crunch for completion of the project. So we're trying to play that market. When's the best time to hit the market? Okay. Any other questions?
I have some more, but
That's okay.
I'm gonna let you get more into the presentation.
So moving on, this proposed budget, of course, includes the 2.5% that was talked about by city manager. That's our step plan for our employees. Also includes the cost of living adjustment, the $1.55 per hour for our current employees. We think this will be a tremendous help for us, and we'll get into some of the personnel stuff here in a little bit. But it's going to address some of the retention issues we have. Also, it's going to help us with recruitment and just retaining our employees. So in this budget, we're proposing 5 new positions. So that would be 128 full-time, 3 part-time, for a total of 131 positions. So let's talk about the rates, and of course you have seen some of this already, but this is a standard single-family customer using 5,000 gallons per month, and the existing rate currently is $58.27. This is combined water and wastewater. With a proposed rate increase, that user's bill would increase roughly $4 to $5.
And Mayor and Commissioners, just to, again, when we did briefings on kind of what we were looking at with our rate studies to come back to you later this month, is Mr. Hubbard noted, this is based on the typical 5,000 gallon consumption per month. About 75% of your water sewer customers fall within that 5,000 or less. About 50% of your customers are in the 3,000 or less.
One of the objectives of the rate study was to keep rates at the lower end low. So we really don't know how our neighbors, where they're going to be this year. They're going through this same process that we're going through. So we don't have a good feel for where we'll finally end up, but we think we'll be close to the bottom as far as our water and sewer rates. Any questions? On to the connection fee side. This is for new construction. So this is combined water and wastewater connection fees. Our current fee is roughly $5,866. The rate consultants are recommending $12,033 for the combined water and wastewater connection fees. Now again, this is associated for new construction only. You can see that Lake Alfred, it would be kind of right below us. They started their connection fees, it's either a year or 2 years ago, they actually started increasing their construction fees. I expect that all the member governments of PRWC have been advised to begin looking at their connection fees as a way to support the PRWC effort. Of course, we're supporting also PRWC, but also a new water resource facility. So I think we'll see that the connection fees across the board are going to increase for all the member governments.
There is, in that same vein, recent media reports of some of our neighboring cities, and that they are looking at those same connection fees. We know that our rate study consultant, they're also engaged by other cities that are asking them to look at the exact same thing. Cost of infrastructure is driving that, the massive increase in population, not just in Polk County, but you can see we've got some examples from up in Lake County and Collier County here as well. So this is kind of a theme throughout the peninsular portion of Florida as we see growth. You're having to expand systems and account for that. And while there may have been significant capacity to do that in years past, that just isn't the case anymore. And the cost associated with that, I think what you hear from a lot of our residents is, people that are coming here need to foot their bill. They need to cover their costs coming in, and that's what the intent of a connection fee is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. So let's dive into the actual budget for this coming year. So this is total projected revenues for the utility fund. And I think a couple of things that kind of jumped out at me. If you look at water sales and sewer charges, that accounts for roughly 43% of the total revenue projected for the budget year. And then, of course, that's reflected in the rate increases that are being proposed. Water and sewer connection fees also stands out at 20%. And of course, that's a direct reflection on development, how much how fast we're growing. So the total budgeted revenues, $80,264,344. Any questions on the revenues? Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna
Okay.
wait. I'm gonna just wait.
On the expenditure side, and this is broken out by some general categories, our capital improvements, our operating services, that's our personnel and the benefits associated with personnel. Then operating services, that's the normal day-to-day operations of all of our utility systems. General fund, that's capped at the 12% limit that's been established by City Commission at $5.34 million. Other non-departmental, that's services that the water department receives from other city departments. Annual debt service projected at 4.7 million. And then the repair and replacement program that I mentioned earlier at 3.9 million, for a total of $74.8 million. So if you go back to the revenues, you got revenues of 80 million, expenditures at 74 million, 75 million.
I gotta ask this, that's based on the fact that if the new construction continues
That is correct.
at the projected level, but if it doesn't, then, and I was just looking at the chart, if you go back a couple of slides back, that one, I don't know, and I have no information, and I have no way of even surmising that our rate of new construction is tied some kind of way to it being a little less costly to develop in Winter Haven as opposed to some other municipalities in Polk County. I don't know if that even comes into the scenario, but in my own mind, if these rates stay the way they are on this chart and we go to the top of the chart, I would think that it may have
So
some
if-
residual.
If you think
Okay.
about it, Lake Alfred had this same decision to make a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And they went to the 11,354. And I'm telling you, development has not slowed
It's not
down
slowed.
in Lake Alfred. I mean, it is absolutely booming. So,
It's a very valid question, what does this do? Does it slow development? Does it have any impact on it whatsoever? I think that we have to kind of wait and see what happens with that. And certainly, the revenue projections are based upon some continued increase in development, in the rate of development that is consistent with what we've seen. I can't speak for developers because I'm not a developer, but I can tell you that, you have impact fees beyond these. You have your connection fees, that those are costs. If I'm building a home, that goes into the cost of the home, and that directly translates into the purchase price of that home. So a lot of that does get transitioned forward. It does raise the cost of the home at the end of the day. But it's kind of a double-edged sword here. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because if you keep it low and you further tax the infrastructure without enough tax, meaning you further burden the infrastructure with new residential growth coming on or even commercial growth without sufficient funds to expand that, as would be necessitated by that very same growth, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice.
so if you were to consider reducing these, then the rate side of the picture has to increase
Right.
to balance the budget. Or, something has to replace those monies. Now, these fees were all connected or calculated based on receiving 5% grant funds. We are pushing really hard, and our goal is to get 25%. But we're actually asking the state for 50%. So we're very active, and you'll see in the revenue numbers, the amount of grant monies that we got this past year and projected for this coming year are pretty substantial.
Okay, could you go back, go on forward to the slide that you're at? Yeah, this one right here. The total budget of the 74 million, my question is, from a 3 to 5 year window, what are you thinking? I mean, I know you got to be thinking of more than just 1 year, right?
Oh, yes, sir. We have a 40-year financial model that we're working from.
Okay, and so basically, the model that you're working on, the numbers that you're presenting to us align with that model?
And we change that model every year based on the actual conditions that we see. So we know that whether the rates are going to have to increase, or do we need to push a construction project out a little bit further?
Okay.
So it's all about being in the right place at the right time and making sure that, you know, the city commission has the information available to make very wise decisions.
Okay, and I got one final question. I keep saying that. Gary and T, with what we are being presented, and when the things that I'm looking at, you're looking at there are some givens in here that we know going to be there. But then there are some other items, like when you start looking at the annual debt service and the capital improvement costs, y'all are projecting that out. You said a model, but I'm just saying, in my own mind, I'm just trying to get my arms around.
So you've got a 5-year CIP
Right.
that is graphing out
Right.
how many projects are in there. It's a significant, over $400,000
Yeah.
CIP over a 5-year window. What you see here, the capital improvements budgeted at $29.6 million. Those are the projects that are lined up to be initiated or spent down in 2025. That's just the first year of that. The annual debt service that you see, that is existing debt service that we have
yes.
today. Yes, not any
Okay.
new debt service.
Okay.
So when Gary pointed out, you've got expenditures of 74.8, you've got revenues of 80.2. So there's a $6 million, profit within there. That is what gets set aside year over year to offset future capital investments. So you're building, you don't acquire all that revenue in 1 year to handle your CIP. You're building that year over year. That's why the whole rate study is built around what is your capital improvement program, what is the timing of that, and where do your rates need to be. There's so many different moving parts within that to get you to where you need to be, so you're financially able to address those projects as they come online. If growth slows, then you look at that, at what's in your CIP, and you push projects farther out.
Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you think about it, that $15 million that the city manager is talking about, that's actually, basically pay as you go and fund or financing as you go. It's all tied together, so.
Okay, just got one more question, and this is to CJ. We're talking about all this borrowing, and I know that we've got a great, yes. Will all this affect that? I mean, I'm just, y'all need to make me feel good.
You want,
I would say it's like your personal rating. If you buy a car and you're going to, pay that over time, it's not going to affect your rating.
Okay.
So we just have to make sure, we pay, and we do. We've never been past due on our debt payments.
As long as you tell me that, I'll feel better.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the whole concept of borrowing for these projects, and we talked about this a little bit during our retreat in April, or March, whenever it was, that you have, when you have projects like this, to place those at the expense of your existing residents when they are designed to serve your population for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that's the basis for why you bond those out, so that the cost to deliver an infrastructural service from future generations isn't borne entirely by the present.
Okay, all right.
okay? So on this slide, this is showing you a comparison of what was budgeted in '24 as far as revenues, the actual fund itself, the balance of the fund. And what you'll see is that in 2025, it's projected that the cash carried forward is going to be somewhere around $45.4 million. And then you add the revenues that we just talked about and take out all the expenses down through the chart there. The ending balance is projected to be $50.8 million. So those additional monies are going to go to fund those capital improvement projects that we have scheduled. Does that all make sense?
It looks too good.
Well, it was designed that way. That's the way we had it designed, is to build those cash reserves to support the funding of the projects.
I'm glad you said that, Gary, because I think that's the key with this. When you're dealing with a CIP that is as massive as a utility CIP is, and certainly Commissioner Mercer knows this intimately, it's like saying, in 5 years, I'm going to have to put a new roof on my house. It would behoove me to begin saving for that today so that I'm not shelling out $20,000 in 1 year and having to come up with that. And in order to save that, I've either got to generate more revenue or cut back on something in my personal budget. In the case of a utility operation, you're looking ahead and saying, as those expenses are coming due, where do I need to be positioned? And that's how this whole the whole rate structure in any utility system is set up.
So it's designed by a purposely to establish those funds. Any questions? So this is the same expenditure budget, but it's by the different operating divisions of the water department. And you can see our non-departmental, that includes the funding, the general fund transfer, accounts for about 20% of our budget. And then you look at the next two items where we really spend a lot of money is in water treatment and wastewater treatment. And that totals about 31% of our budget. So that's where we're spending all our money, basically. We've got, of course, smaller expenditures that we have by the different divisions here. So, and including the repair and maintenance, because we need to make sure that we take care of everything that we got already, as well as plan for what's needed in the future. The following slides are a breakout by each one of those divisions to show you the difference between the FY24 budget and the FY25 budget. So you'll see ups and downs through the different divisions, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get back a little bit further here. But in many cases, you'll see some negatives. That's associated with capital projects. So.
Yeah, and in that regard, just kind of a precursor as Gary goes through this, most of the personnel increases you see can be tied to the cost of living adjustment that we proposed. We've got some reclassifications for some of our certified treatment plant operators, some pay adjustments there that are unique. The 2.5% step comes into play with just about all these different cost centers. There were 5 new positions proposed within the budget, so that will reflect in there. The operating and capital, just as Gary had said, a lot of one-time expenses in the current year that don't show up in 2025. So that's the primary driver for where you see decreases in operating as well as within the capital. You'll also note that we have this new repair and replacement cost center. So anything that was within the repair and replacement in existing cost centers has been extrapolated out and plugged into there.
Right. Thank you, City Manager. So over to water treatment, wastewater treatment, water distribution. You can see again all of these, excuse me, show a decrease. This is that transfer to the repair and replacement fund. So you'll still see that there's increases in the personnel. That's again associated with the step plan adjustments and that $1.55 per hour per employee. Again, the same thing. The Reclaimed Water Division does not have any personnel as of yet. I would think that in the years coming that we will start to fill some positions in there, but that's probably a few years down the road. Same thing with the repair and replacement. No personnel directly attached to those cost centers. Then on to meter services. Again, you can see that there's increases in that division. That's primarily associated with our AMI system, our infrastructure in there. So if you look at the total for the department, there was actually a decrease from last year's budget to this year's budget. And you say, wow, great job, Gary. Well, it's really what it is that we are not spending as much money on the capital side this coming budget year as what was projected last year. So, but it does amount to a $1.35 million overall reduction in the personnel and operating expenses, so about a 4% reduction across the board.
That, just point out that one of the things that stands out to me with that total reduction of $19.58 million, Gary mentioned capital. Remember, we bought the Bradco Farms property last year. That was a $10 million acquisition.
Right.
We're not buying the $10 million piece of land again this year. So when those are big one-time expenses that when they roll off, they have a very positive effect on the overall budget.
But we did a good job too last year, okay? So let's talk a little bit about personnel. As I noted that we would be requesting 5 positions for this year, a water plant chief operator and a maintenance mechanic 2. This is to help with the workload at the water treatment plants. We had an audit done by U.S. Water about a year and a half ago, and they recommended 3 additional employees for the water treatment plants. So most likely in the coming years, there'll be another request for another operator. This division has experienced a lot of difficulties retaining operators. I think we have 4 licensed operators, and the rest are all trainees. So we always have to have a licensed operator on staff, so it's made it very difficult from a scheduling standpoint. So down below in the reclassification portions, this is where you see the changes for water and wastewater treatment operators. And basically what we're looking at is the $1.55, and then with some consideration to their years of service at their current pay grade. And their pay grades would increase. For example, a C operator would go from a 22 pay grade to a 25 pay grade. So basically what we're trying to do is make sure that we stay competitive in the marketplace and are able to attract those employees. And after we train them, we keep them. Because right now, we're training them and they're going elsewhere. So we think that what has been proposed in this year's budget will be a tremendous benefit for retaining our employees in the future.
Quick comment on this, if I may, Mayor and Commissioners. So you recall, I'll go back and say 2021, 2022 timeframe. We had presented a budget that had some significant adjustments for solid waste employees and fleet mechanics. That was an area that we were, high demand, low supply. COVID had massive impacts in that realm, and so we had to do some significant adjustments to those rates of pay to make sure that we were able to deliver the services. We've also done that within the fire department in recent years, as well as within the police department. This year as we looked at this, recognizing the significance of water, the safety of water, the safety of treating wastewater, the uniqueness of our system, and the high technical nature of these positions, Gary and I, working together with Sean Dykes, our Human Resources Director, recognize we need to do something to make sure we are able to recruit and retain quality employees in those positions. These are high-demand positions, not just Winter Haven, but anywhere across the state where you have growth. The need to expand services, so people are going after treatment operators left and right. And we have to be competitive in that market. When you have turnover, you have a loss of institutional knowledge that is critical in operating these facilities. I feel that where we're landing with what we're doing to boost these specific positions is going to position us well to have greater resiliency within our workforce going forward.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes.
Is there any incentive to go from a C to a B?
Yes.
You have it separated from just the normal?
Every grade there's an incentive. So let's say that you're a C and you go to a B. If the pay grade changes, of course, automatically, but if your pay does not, if your pay plus 5% exceeds the grade, then you get the 5%.
And we do that, Commissioner Mercer. Our transitions go from trainee to C to B to A, that each one of those has a different pay structure with it. Your question's interesting, because when we looked at all the other cities, some of those cities, there's not a change between a trainee and a C, or between in some cases, they would have a C and a B within the same grade.
Right, thank you. In regards to the other personnel, water distribution, we're requesting a crew leader 2 position. This individual would begin to take over some of the responsibilities of valve exercising and flushing of our system. This is a requirement by DEP. So this is the beginning of establishing a separate crew to take care of this effort. In the past years, we have been contracting this work out. In the budget itself is capital associated with the valve exercising and flushing program. In lift stations, requesting 2 personnel. You can imagine with all the development that's going on, we're adding lift stations right and left, and we just need more personnel out there to keep an eye and make sure these stations are operating properly. So let's talk a little bit about and City Manager alluded to this somewhat, but staffing challenges that we faced over the last 4 or 5 years. When I came on board in 2018, we made a real concerted effort to hire more people, and we made some changes on how positions in the utilities, how people could progress in their career. And that really helped us lower the amount of vacancies we had. And then in 2020, COVID hit, and things just went haywire. You know, all that money was being flooded into the market by the Fed, and people just didn't want to work. So we ended up with vacancies. We ran vacancies in 22, 20% of our workforce. We did not have 20% of our workforce. That's pretty substantial. Currently, though, we're down to 11 vacancies. Most of these occur at the lower pay grades. We're making progress, but this new pay plan is going to make a tremendous difference. That's really going to be the key to attracting new individuals. I mean, when you think about it, we were paying $14.55 per hour, and they could go to Walmart, they could go to Wawa for $15 an hour. It's really hard to compete with that. So going to the $16 as a minimum, just a tremendous effort. So we appreciate that. So some significant things in the budget. This is on the operations side. Some rehabilitation air basins at wastewater plant 3. That's the largest that's scheduled in the budget at $1.5 million. We're seeing a lot of FDOT work, and just kind of being sprung on us. So we want to make sure that we have money set aside for relocation of utility mains associated with those projects. Sludge removal, that's a huge cost, hauling sludge to landfills. Of course, as we go through the new water resource facility, we'll be looking at how we might reduce that. Lead and copper, that's a new initiative that's being pushed forward by the EPA, replacing lead and copper service lines. So that's where you see that. Smart covers, I wanted to talk a little bit about. We've been budgeting for these for the last 3 years. I believe we have 55 in service? Yes, sir. Yeah, 55 in service, and projecting to purchase 10 more? Or is that 9? Yes, sir. 10 more. The purpose of the smart covers is basically to protect our lakes. You know, with these smart covers, they send a signal up to a satellite, sends it back down to our operators, and they know the exact level of water in a manhole. So they can tell when we've got a blockage and get there before that blockage becomes a spill. So very important thing for our environment. On the capital investment side, this is broken out in general groups of water treatment, reclaimed water, our divisions more or less. But you can see it's the capital expense at $24.8 million. This does not include any additional land purchases. But the primary expense is coming years in the water treatment side, and that's associated with 2 new water treatment plants. So now we get into the 5-year investment program. And this is, again, broken out by each division and the projects that are planned over the next 5 years, and the rough estimated expense of those projects. So you can see, again, you know, water was one of the primary ones in 2025, where we're anticipating spending $8.2 million. That increases in 26 when we get heavy into construction at $23 million. But you can see over the next 5 years for water treatment plants, spending roughly $50 million. Wastewater treatment plant 2, we're not projecting to spend a lot of money there. That's because we're going to decommission this facility. Feel free to ask me any questions. Under engineering, this is designed for the new utility complex and extensions. Those are the top 2 numbers there that you're looking at. And then we have monies allocated for, you know, water projects, and the Cypress Wood project too is also projected out there a little bit further in 28. But we're projecting over the next 5 years, $37.6 million. Wastewater treatment plant 2, this is where the big money comes in. You can see in 2025, we're projecting maybe $2 million. This is primarily design associated monies. The real expenses start occurring in 26, 27, and 28, totaling out to $180 million. Down in water distribution, this is normal, just water main extensions, $12 million over a 5-year period.
Can I ask a quick question
Sure.
on the water treatment plant? Are we still, I know nothing's been set in stone or definite on which way to go, but are we still in the process of considering potentially the construction firm that is similar to what the school board has used in building schools for that water plant?
So that's a P3 approach, is what the school district did. We are doing a progressive design build approach on the wastewater treatment plant 3 or water resource facility. This is the effort that I think Commissioner Mercer just sat in on, our design build evaluation. Wharton Smith was selected for that. And then we also have a
Kimley Horn
Kim-
with the engineers, the primary engineers.
And then Jones Edmonds is serving as an owner's rep
That's
in that
correct.
process. And that approach, Mayor Pro Tem Yates, was the best approach to go forward because we don't know exactly what each phase of that project needs to entail. So similar to like when we build a fire station, we use a progressive design build process where you assess what are your needs, what is the best way to meet those needs, design it accordingly, and then that same entity is responsible for building it. In this case, you're using an existing facility, so being able to assess what are your long-term assets within that still have some viability to them, and how do you expand upon them and take that piece by piece, knowing that your funding is not all in place at one time and you're going to have to do a phased approach was the best approach to deliver that. We are looking at kind of that school board approach, the P3 approach. We are in some discussions right now. You may recall that we awarded a P3 proposal to RES for the Bradco Farms project, I guess we call it the Sapphire Necklace East
Yeah.
Winter Haven
I call-
project.
I call it the first gem of the necklace.
But that's what shows up in here. So that's really our first foray into that 3P approach. But long answer to your question, the best approach on the water resource facility is a progressive design build where you're looking specifically, what are the issues you're facing today on the age of your facility? What's viable to maintain and build off of? Where do you need to expand? Hence that decision to move that forward.
Okay? Thank you.
It is a lot different building a water and wastewater treatment plant than a school.
Yes.
A lot of different.
So over the next 5 years, we're projecting expenditures roughly $20 million on the wastewater collection side. Includes septic to sewer conversions, master lift stations, sewer force main extensions. You can see Lake Ship Drive in there too. So that's planned in the budget also. Down below is reclaimed water, and this is mostly recharge of the Florida and aquifer type projects or expenditures that will allow us to recharge the upper Florida and aquifer so that we get more water supply. So this is really, we're talking about roughly $19 million over the next 5 years. So the big, let's see, the next one is repair and replacement. That's that $3.9 million that we're projecting to start out that fund. And this is listing the projects that are proposed for this coming year. Key things there, I think, new antenna at Fairfax. It's actually going to be considered as part of the Fire Station 4 project. I think will happen. Replacement at the high service pump 1 at Inwood. That's for reliability purposes, and then a lift station. One thing that we're proposing is, like with our lift stations, we have portable bypass pumps that we can roll anywhere to work at a lift station. In this budget this year, we're proposing a portable high service pump that we can roll to any water treatment plant, so that if we lose pumps, we've got a spare that's mobile. So that's one of the things that we're doing from a resiliency standpoint. Further on this page, the AMI system, projecting spending $500,000 in the AMI meter system, and future expenditures in 26 and 27. For a total 5-year capital projects, $24.8 million. This does not include the property purchases that are proposed. For a $345 million budget over the next 5 years. Some significant projects, of course, we've talked about these a little bit already. The water resource facility at $180 million. One water projects, this is wetland restoration, primarily the Bradco. Water treatment plants, Inwood, Cypress, Pollard Road, those all lumping together, an investment of $33.3 million. New admin complex at $16 million. Interconnects with our neighboring utilities for resiliency and sustainability efforts. Aquifer recharge projects, $7.7 million, and so on down the list there. So the major projects over the next 5 years totaling $283 million. So on the water treatment plant side, just a little more detail on what's being proposed. We're proposing 2 new water plants. The Pollard Road water plant, it'll be designed for 8 million gallons per day. This will be our connection point to PRWC, where we'll be receiving roughly 4 million gallons per day from PRWC. Now keep in mind, our portion of that water is only 1.52 million gallons, so the remaining water will be wheeled to Auburndale and Lake Alfred. So this is a very important facility for us, especially considering the PRWC receiving facilities, but with Niagara coming in this area also, we need a water supply that's very close by to that demand. So this is going to be critical for our future. The Cypress Wood water treatment facility is projected to be 1.5 million gallons per day, and that's to replace an existing water treatment plant that is literally falling apart. So those are projected to begin this coming year. As a matter of fact, the well drilling contract was just approved.
On this commission.
It's on this commission meeting coming up. We've been working with the Water Management District on a WUP application. We have not submitted an official application at this point in time, but we have been in discussions with them now for 6 months or better about a 50-year permit with an ask for future groundwater totaling 18.275 million gallons. Our current permit from the Upper Fordon is for 14.06 million gallons. Now, they were a little bit hesitant on the 50-year permit, but they haven't said no, but they haven't said yes also. So we'll see where that goes. The water resource facility, the new facility will replace our 2 existing plants eventually when everything's complete. Both of these facilities were designed and commissioned in the 1970s. They were primarily funded by US EPA through the 201 grant program. I suspect they were funded at 75% grant money. I don't know that for sure, but that's what typically happened back in that time frame. So we'll be combining all those efforts into one facility that will meet the needs of the city of Winter Haven for the next 20 to 30 years and beyond. The first phase, basically a 12 MGD facility expanded to 24 million gallons per day in the future. So we would expect this facility to be operational for the next 50 plus years. Wharton Smith, as city manager noted, was selected as the progressive design firm for this project. We will be coming to you with a request to begin negotiations. I think that's also on this coming meeting, and also an agreement for our owner representatives. So you'll be seeing that in the agenda tonight. Any questions, Mr. Mayor? So also a major effort is the Bradco Farms project. We have looked at, if you look over on the right-hand side, that graphic, Bradco Farms is outlined with a heavy black line. It's been proposed to expand the scope of the project to include about another 100 acres to the northeast. and we're working through those details with RES. Our understanding is those properties are already under contract by RES. We're in current negotiations to perform more due diligence efforts on the property to better define the total cost of the project. We submitted recharge well permits to DEP back in August of last year, and I'm meeting with Deputy Secretary Adam Blaylock Friday of this week to talk about when we might get some permits issued. So I also will be talking with him about, we submitted grant applications for this coming cycle, and I think they totaled 117 million. So good things happen if we can get some of those funds in. It'll help us. So the primary focus, of course, of the Bradco Farms project, restoring the wetlands, flood mitigation, creating nature park, providing a source of water for recharge of the upper Floridan, and then a trail system. So we're getting right here at the end. A major initiatives for this coming year, our automated meter infrastructure program, our AMI system. Our coverage is currently at about 50% or just a little bit greater. But we feel like over the next 2 years, we can get very close to 100%. As a matter of fact, we're going to be installing new antennas to collect the large collectors here, and we should add, is it 5 or 6? Six. Before the start of the fiscal year. So that's going to be a big improvement. We're also looking at replacing water meters. This past year, we've come to the commission twice to buy large quantities of water meters. We will continue to do so. Our target is to replace 10,000 meters a year, so that when this batch of meters expires or reaches their useful life, they're scheduled over a 4 or 5 year period for replacement. We're not trying to tackle this all at one time. I talked a little bit about the additional personnel for the unidirectional flushing and the valve exercise program, adding 1 employee and equipment to support that effort. The establishment of the repair and replacement fund, that's to make sure that we address this and keep our systems operational in the future. And while the revenues that are proposed here are based on 5% grant funding, we're actively trying to get 50%. And we think that we probably won't get 50, but we're gonna try. We feel pretty confident we can get 25%. One thing that I've been working on is the Florida One Water Commission. I started the commission back in August of last year. It's grown to over 100 individuals that have joined the effort, and it was decided to make it an official commission. And the official commission had its first meeting July 16th of this year. Unfortunately, I missed that, and I'm the acting chair, but I was struggling with shingles at the time being, and so poor guy. So unfortunately, I was not at the first meeting. Our next meeting is proposed to be here in October at our One Water Summit here in, I think it's the 10th and 11th of October. But the primary objective of the One Water Commission is to advocate for changes in state law, our rules and regulations, and of course, funding for nature-based type solutions. And this has attracted a lot of attention across the state. I just could not believe how fast it took off. So, with that, our future meeting dates, as city manager started us out with, we'll have 2 budget workshops, connection fee workshops scheduled for August 21st and for September 4th. We'll talk about the rates and the connection fees together, and then we'll have 2 readings One on August 26th will be our first reading for our rates and connection fees, and the second reading on September 10th. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Mayor and Commissioners, if I could just clarify one point on those meeting dates that you see. The special City Commission Utility Connection Fee Workshop that appears for Wednesday, August 21st. That workshop at 5 o'clock, we will just discuss the connection fees during that. That's part of the enactment process that we need to follow. On the agenda that will follow that will be discussion of the rate adjustments. Those fall kind of a little separately, but both ordinances will have a first reading on August 26th, and then we'll repeat that same process for you'll have a special City Commission Utility Connection Fee Workshop on September 4th, again, talking specifically about the connection fee adjustments. When we convene the agenda review workshop meeting that evening, you'll have for consideration or for discussion at that point, the second reading of both the connection fee and the rate adjustments. So that's the cycle. You may recall we've done this in past years when we've looked at those rates and connection fees, how we tackle that. So notices are going out at present time to all of our utility customers via the billing process that announces the Tuesday, September 10th, 6 p.m. meeting is the time and the location and for the consideration of rate adjustments specific to the utility rates themselves. And then the city clerk's office will post the proper notice, advertisement, I should say, for our commission, those special workshops that we have for the connection fees, same as we do for any other workshop meeting we have.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say one thing? I'm sorry I was late.
Cannot.
This is appropriate for what we're talking about today. I was over being interviewed on Bay News 9 and on Channel 13. I got a late call this morning to come over and to talk. And one of the things they wanted to talk about was the Sapphire Necklace and also the Polk Regional Water Cooperative and what we were doing here and how it related to our lakes. And I was on this program. It's called In Focus. You'll see it starting Sunday on Bay News 9 and Channel 13. It's going to run for 3 or 4 days.
Nice.
And they were very interested. Now, it was an hour and a half, and it's only a half-hour program, so who knows what's going to actually make it. But they wanted to talk a lot offline about the Sapphire Necklace and the property, the Bradco property, and what we had been doing. And I was on program with a gentleman, Jay. He's the chairman of the Pasco Hernando County Commission or something. I'm not sure what county it was, but he and I were the two guests on there. And but the point is, we've made a lot of waves, and people are noticing what we're doing over here. And the whole point was how we handling stormwater retention and all that kind of stuff in Polk County on inland properties. And of course, they wanted to know how the FMIT saw it, and so that was partly why they asked me to go on there. But if you want to watch it, you can. But it was
Definitely.
before the interview and after the interview, they really wanted to talk about the Sapphire Necklace and what we were trying to accomplish. So it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear.
so anyway, and I just got back. So anyway,
You get a pass.
okay. Glad to have one.
For pitching our project.
Anyone else?
So, Mayor and Commissioners, just a closing comment. Again, the amount of this budget is what's reflected in what I presented on the 17th of July. It doesn't have any impact on millage rates. This is funded solely through connection fees, user fees, grant funds, miscellaneous fees that are charged within there. It is built around proposed rate adjustments within our utility systems, status quo on the water, an increase of 7.5% on the sewer. That presentation on those rate adjustments will come before you. Again, Monday, August 26th, Tuesday, September 10th, is also built around increases in our connection fees that will also be considered at those same meetings. If for some reason those rates don't get amended or changed, or the commission takes some other action in that regard, what we would do in response to that is have to go back to the capital side of this budget and scale that back, extend out those projects beyond what the current 5-year window shows. So I just put that out as for informational purposes.
Any other questions, comments? If not,
I'd like to thank my entourage back here. It's good, this budget would not be possible without all that hard work.
all right, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Gary. Thank you, crew. This meeting is adjourned. And now, do we need a break before we go into the official?
I think we advertised the commission workshop for 6:30, so you have 15 minutes.
Oh, all right. It was 6:30, I thought it was 6:50.
AJ, is that correct? 6:30 was the, 6:30?
6:30?
Brad, I thought when you told me you were going to be on TV.
No, they wanted pretty. They wanted, you know, they don't care about the brains. I was surprised when they called me this morning and asked me to come over.
Good evening. I'd like to call the
Switzerland's on.
regular workshop meeting to order at 6:30. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dollison.
Here.
Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner Dantzler.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates.
Here.
And Mayor Birdsong.
Here. All right, we will do our usual things. We will have the invocation, pledge of allegiance, the presentations, the proclamation, we'll do that on Monday. Are we going to do this accreditation for law enforcement? Is that going to be?
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, just real quick on these, Dave Carter is going to be retiring from Carter K Engineering, so we're going to recognize him for all of his work with the city. The Commission on Accreditation, there'll be a presentation that Charlie Bird and David Brandon will lead. They just got that official accreditation 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And then the Certified Public Manager graduates, they actually graduate tomorrow, and we'll present them to you that evening.
Okay, so we're going to do that tonight?
We'll do that Monday night.
Oh, Monday night.
Monday night,
Oh, okay, okay. All right, then we have no developments of notes. Then we have the minutes, comments from the audience. And then we move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. So, high-level overview of these real quick. The DOC inmate work program, you may recall, we've had this program in place for a number of years. It was suspended in 2020 with COVID. We are finally getting 2 of those crews back, and we expect them to start probably within the next, I would say, 8 to 10 weeks. So that is a pretty straightforward item. MJ will present the next one quickly.
So this is a change order similar to the one that we've recently presented on Lake Elbert, where once we opened up the ground, the pipe that was in the ground that was supposed to be grouted was in worse condition than we had hoped, and that whole pipe needs to be pulled out to be replaced. So this change order addresses that. The second part of this change order is to replace a section of curb that we'd hoped to be able to salvage, but really just ends up needing to be replaced at the end of the day here. And so that'll be paid for from the project contingency.
Okay.
Next item is, we're doing some renovations on the filtration systems at Roddy Gaines Pool. This is to address some of the long lead items that we need, particularly the filters themselves. They're expected to take about four months or longer. This is a project in which Rada Construction is the CMAR, and so we are proposing to go ahead and acquire that necessary equipment now. The Willowbrook Golf Course, this is the design work as well as the advancement of our on-course restroom facility. This project was originally awarded to one vendor, Michael Beebe and Associates. They withdrew from the project due to insurance and bonding issues, and so Whitehead was the second lowest bidder on that. They will be performing the work. The design work is not to exceed a price of $147,920. As I mentioned, they will also be doing renovations to the existing on-course restroom that's noted within the fact sheet. And then those renovations are about $170,497 in addition to the $147,920 for design work. Once we get into that design, we'll further prioritize those projects based upon available funds and with feedback from our partners at Troon, which is formerly Billy Casper Golf, and all those will start sequencing from that point forward. Next item is Sertoma Baseball. MJ, would you take that, please?
So this is to a simple award of ITB 2429 for shade structures at Sertoma Park. These are pre-engineered, prefabricated shade structures. The project was let for bid in July of this year. We received 9 bids that range from $73,000 to $184,000. Review of the bids found the low bidder, Shade America Incorporated, to be non-responsive because they did not meet our wind specifications. So the second low bidder, Shade Systems Incorporated, they met all the scope of work and specifications required, and a recommendation of award was posted in July of 2024 with no protests received. The financial impact of that is $72,000 was budgeted for Sertoma Park bleacher covers, and the remaining $8,749 will come from cost savings in activity fields operating line item, and staff's recommending approval of that item.
Next item is the interlocal agreement with the town of Dundee. This is for potable water and wastewater utility services associated with Cypress Creek Village Mobile Home Park Phase 5. So this is a mobile home park that's located directly across from Cypress Wood on Dundee Road, kind of back behind the Dollar General, and there's a strip plaza there. Phases 1 through 4 of that mobile home park are within the city of Winter Haven. Phase 5 is actually within the town of Dundee. But in order to meet their water sewer needs that they have, Dundee is not in a position to be able to do that, and so this is an interlocal agreement where the city of Winter Haven will actually be providing water and sewer services into an adjacent municipality. Dundee will still maintain solid waste collection services, and they will be, Commissioner Mercer saying no?
No. Is that, are they?
Oh, yes, we have confirmed that with town management.
Okay.
Yes.
They just told me 2 days ago that, no, they had given it to you since you were already in there, so I don't know.
We confirmed that after we had received that email from you that, no, Dundee
All right.
will, plans on providing all other municipal services, to include law enforcement.
Okay.
Is that water going to be charged at a normal citizen rate, or is it going to be charged at?
It'll be charged at the surcharged rate for non-Winter Haven customers. Am I saying that right? Non-resident, non-City of Winter Haven resident customers, there's a 25% surcharge, yeah. And so, yeah, this is just an interlocal agreement for us to provide that water and sewer service to that subdivision. Next item is well construction at Cypress Wood and Pollard Road water treatment plants. This is part of kind of what Mr. Hubbard was talking about in the budget presentation. We'll have new water treatment facilities within Cypress Wood and at Pollard Road. Part of the effort to develop those is the well construction. And this is for both of those sites, total construction cost at $7.996 million. The next item is the remediation area 6A for septic to sewer. This pertains specifically to the replacement and rehabilitation of a lift station in that process, existing lift station 191, so that it can be appropriately sized and conditioned for when that septic to sewer project goes forward. Bringing those homes that are on septic service today, being able to tie into that new lift station. This is a construction cost of $1.103 million with about 180-day construction duration. And it's awarded to, we're recommending award to B&B Underground Construction for that project. Next item is repair of RAS pump at wastewater treatment plant 3. MJ, would you take that, please?
Wastewater treatment plant 3 uses 4 of these sludge pumps in their treatment processes. Pump 1 and 2 are utilized to move sludge from the north and middle clarifiers, and pump 3 and 4 are utilized for the south clarifier. Pump 1 had a seal failure alarm, so the team pulled it, and they sent it out for to be looked at, and the company MKI Services, who is the sole representative for the pump manufacturer in Florida, has made a recommendation to replace the rotating pump assembly and mechanical seal, and that'll cost $59,784, and funds are allocated for within the utility fund.
Next item is an amendment to grant agreements with PRWC and FDEP. So in 2022, DEP and the Polk Regional Water Cooperative entered into some grant agreements specific to the Heartland Headwaters Protection and Sustainability Act. Winter Haven is obviously a member of the PRWC, and we have 2 projects that are included in that grant agreement. One is a septic to sewer program, and one is an ASR well field at wastewater treatment plant 3. DEP and the PRWC have done 2 amendments to those, one in 2023, March of 2023, and one in September of 2023, that modified the budget and scope for the sustainability projects. So we need to be a party to those amendments and execute likewise as a member of the PRWC and with projects included within those original grant agreements. There's no cost associated with this. This is simply executing the amendments on behalf of the city of Winter Haven. Next item, 10K. This is for design criteria and owner's representative professional services. This is for the Water Resource Facility, also known as Wastewater Treatment Plant 3. This was through an RFQ 2415 for design criteria and owner's representative professional services for the Water Resource Facility at Pollard Road. This is a task order number 1. Bear with me one second. I want to make sure I give you the right information here. For $1,092,565 with Jones Edmonds, and will be a part of that design build, progressive design build process. So having a owner's representative to help our team in executing that project. We mentioned Wharton Smith has been awarded that contract for the progressive design build to actually carry out final design and construction in the phases that it comes. In this case, Jones Edmonds will be our owner's rep. Gary, is there anything more specific with that we need to?
No, it includes CEI services, so we get into construction.
Very complicated project. Typically, we bring on a third party to help us oversee those, so that's what this pertains to. MJ, records modernization.
So as you know, the city is required to maintain public records. Depending on the record, there is a different retention period for those records. For decades, the city has stored hard copies at a warehouse on airport property. As the city has moved to digital processes, less and less hard copies are generated every year. So many of the records at this facility predate 2006, so they're from the 70s up into 2006. Some of these records have to be retained, some do not, but they all have to be sorted to determine whether those have met their retention period and can be legally disposed of or not. Also, in their current state, they're not readily available, so these are just kind of banker boxes in a building out there. There's some labels on them, and it can be tough to get through. But it makes, when we get a records request that might require those, we're not able to put our hands on them as quickly as I think everybody has become accustomed to in today's day and age. Makes those lengthy. Also, that facility is not as secure as might not be recommended under today's guidelines. It's an older building. So to ensure this is done in accordance with state law and in the most efficient way possible, we developed a scope of work with SML Incorporated. This is a firm that's provided similar to support over 130 public agencies in the state of Florida. The owner, Steve Lewis, is kind of the state guru. I know Vanessa had mentioned that he teaches the records retention classes at the clerks conferences, for instance, and conferences that other staff has attended. So he will develop what is called a formal disposition plan. So that is a document that outlines exactly how we dispose of documents within the city. And then he will bring his team on site and sort through all of those documents, dispose of, and then index any files that have to be retained so that we have a system to be able to quickly put our hands on those files as needed. He will also develop a recommendation for long-term storage options for the records that we do have to retain. We've included some estimates of the cost that he thinks are accurate given his experience, but it's really tied to the work. So when he gets out there, if everything's very well organized, that might go quickly. If it's just a box of loose paper, that might take a little longer. Once the airport facility is complete, we also plan to engage that team to start going through kind of these pockets of other records that exist in different areas of the city. Our fleet is an example. There's a lot of old paper records out at our fleet building. There's the vault in this building has quite a few old paper records in it. And so just working through that to kind of bring that up to modern standards. So modernizing the access to all of that information. We've also built in a revisit of our records program by them in 2026. So that kind of gives us multiple touch points over the next few years as we bring all of those records kind of up to speed. They should be able to get started in the next month or so, and then they'll basically work with us until we've gone through everything. A significant amount of the records at the airport are for the building division, so they're able to fund a significant portion of that work from their funds. They'll also pay for that disposition plan to be developed, and then the remainder of that work, which we estimate to be about $75,000, will be split out based on the funds that the records relate to. So we don't know exactly what that is at this point, but as they go through it, and if it's a utilities box, that'll get charged to utilities. If it's a streets box, that'll get charged to public works, so on and so forth. And so that's pretty much it for that one. Just trying to bring our records into the modern era.
That's good.
Items 10M and 10N kind of go hand in hand. This is something that Julie Adams, Scott Eilers, and the team have been working on for a while. This pertains to a use agreement with Theater Winter Haven. As you know, Theater Winter Haven's existed for over 50 years. They've been a party to the Channel Lakes complex since it was originally constructed. We've always had a loosely structured agreement with the theater, but given some changes in programs and operations with the facility itself, some of the things that they want to pursue in terms of grant dollars and other programming things, we need to have a more formalized agreement in place. So this is a use agreement between the city and Theater Winter Haven that outlines respective responsibilities and considerations. It's a 10-year agreement. It can be, it has an option for renewal with any of those terms to be negotiated at that point of the renewal. It gives Theater Winter Haven's permitted use to specific areas of the field house as defined within the agreement, predominantly stage in the main proscenium theater, the small stage, certain office spaces, some of the upstairs classroom spaces that they have historically been using. It does allow us to add additional facilities to this agreement. That is what the addendum in 10N pertains to. That specifically outlines the Ritz Theater. We started working on this agreement long before we had the Ritz Theater, process going forward, and we don't want to combine them both within the same exact agreement, because if something happened to the Ritz down the road, we don't want to have to undo, everything within the master use agreement. So that's why we have that as an addendum to it. Theater Winter Haven will pay the city a fee of 6.5% of the on-site individual ticket sales for their main stage productions. We estimate that's going to be about $15,000 to $20,000 in revenue per year. The city has not received revenue from theater operations since, I believe, 2018. Around 2021, we made a significant contribution back to the theater and Ridge Art at the same time to offset some of the challenges that they incurred as a result of COVID. You may recall that from our retreat in 21. I did negotiate with the theater that payment of 6.5% of those ticket sales would not commence this October, but in October of 2025. That was specifically considered based upon the fact that what they are going to invest into the Ritz Theater in terms of seating and some enhancements to that is going to be a financial cost to them. And I think in consideration of that, that's only fair. They're responsible in the main operations of Channel Lakes facility. Anything that's associated with their production, they're responsible for those costs. There's certain cleaning responsibilities and maintenance responsibilities they have. The city's responsible for the structure overall, as well as the utility costs associated with that building. They have to provide the insurance that's outlined within the agreement. They also, either party can terminate this with 180 days written notice. There's also some conditions for material defaults that can result in termination. The addendum, as I mentioned, that's going to be in 10N. This is very specific to the Ritz Theater. It adds the Ritz Theater as an additional permitted premises to that use agreement that we just described. It calls for them to provide us a schedule of events by September 1st of each year. They are responsible for all costs associated with their productions. So ticketing, any licensing fees, any tech fees, anything that goes along with a production taking place there, the staffing, the cleaning, that is all the responsibility of the theater. The city is responsible for the building envelope, major structural maintenance aspects, and the ongoing utility operational costs of that building. There is, again, a termination clause that provides for 180 days notice, as well as for any material defaults. We did close on the Ritz Theater. I'm looking for John and Scott on the 5th. Scott has been in there in the past couple days with our own facilities folks, checking everything out, seeing what we got, what we don't got, what we need to do. Dan's been a part of that as well. So I think we're in a good position going forward. That building has been added to the city's inventory of insured facilities. I believe all the utilities have been set up in the city's name now, so we're ready to rock and roll. Dan has provided me a schedule of events I'm super excited about. I think that, believe we're going to have him here to maybe offer some comments Monday evening. I need to clarify that with him. But his schedule of events includes everything from community dances to the old vaudeville shows to tribute concerts, kind of a Tuesday through Saturday, and I think even some Sunday productions in that space that I expect will have a positive impact on downtown.
Quick question on the Ritz. To be clear, and this is basically for all of us, we're turning the Ritz over to Dan, just like the Theater Winter Haven, and if he decides to tear everything down, that's up to them, it's up to him. We, as a commission, have basically hired him to, what I'm trying to find out is if somebody from the community approaches one of us about, why are you tearing down this, or why are you doing this, why are you doing that? Well, defer them all to Dan and let Dan do it, because we've basically hired him to run that for us, correct?
Well, we've given him a use agreement to operate that space. Anything that happens in that space is at the approval of us. We're involved in that day to day, just like we are in the main theater.
I mean, we approve what play he picks?
No, he does all that himself, but if you're talking about structural things within the building, like I know he's planning, he's already shared with us some of the blueprints of new seating that he wants to install and those things. So we are a party to that and involved in, yes, we're good with that. We know what's happening there. But the productions that he puts on, the events, he does that.
The rental schedules,
That's
all
all
that stuff goes through him?
That goes through them.
Not us?
Right, absolutely.
And you've already had your closing, so I assume we bought the building as is, I understand.
You are the owner of a building.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The warranty deed has been recorded.
Wow, you're quick, John.
So, and I got the original back today. It was recorded Monday and got it back this afternoon.
I think his anticipation, I mean, not everything starts instantly, but we'll clarify with him, or staff will. I believe September sometime is when he expects to start things to roll out there. But he's, the changing of the seating layout and the rise of the room itself. I think Scott reported to me earlier today that we've got probably some flooring improvements, that we've got some soft spots we're gonna have to get in and do some maintenance on ahead of time. So it'll take, several weeks to get things rolling out there, but we're excited to have that happening. And I believe that's everything on your consent agenda, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, so.
Mr. Mayor, I got one more question.
Yes.
Can I circle back, please, T, to 10F, the interlocal with the town of Dundee?
Yes, sir.
Is this has been in works for a long time, or is this something new? Because I know for a long time they had, is this the property that the Davidson of Dundee owns, or?
No. So AJ, is there a map that you can pull up for this one, please? So it's kind of fuzzy to see and hear, but this is, again, the mobile home park directly across from the main entrance of Cypress Wood. So you have a Dollar General, and you have a little strip center that front that. Back behind that's the mobile home park. And if you look to the very north, AJ, can you put your mouse right over where it says proposed Cypress Creek Village Mobile Home Park? So that area, that square, is where Phase 5 of this project is going to go. The Davidson of Dundee property, I think you're referencing, that was further north and kind of, I think that was more actually tied into Lake Hamilton.
It was on the east side of 27,
It was on the west side of 27.
Oh, it was?
As you got further north,
Much further.
Okay.
before Crump Road tied in.
Well, I know they really wanted to get into.
Yeah, that was a much more complicated one, and it involved some negotiations that would need to actually take place between Dundee and Lake Hamilton, as I recall.
Well, it's probably not founded, but the only thing that concerns me about this type of a deal, and I tie it back to like the Juanita water power plant, we are getting, I know you, Gary, is probably tired of hearing about the Juanita water plant. Everybody thinks it's
today.
Winter Haven, it's Juanita, and I don't want that to happen here. You know what I mean? Because this is us, and I just don't want us to get, our guys who run a really clean shop to get dragged through the mud because of Dundee. You know what I mean? I want to, not because of Dundee, but maybe in spite of it. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I don't want what's happening with Juanita to happen here.
I think this is a little different, and I'll ask John and Gary to comment further if I misstate something here, but in the case of Juanita Water with Eagles Landing, and we're dealing with that issue today, that we've got some very unhappy customers out there. They are citizens of ours, but they are customers of Juanita Water, and I wish there was something more we could do for them, but we're kind of in a pickle there.
And I feel sorry for those people because
Yeah.
they're stuck.
They're stuck, and they're
And
our
that's-
residents, and we can't really do anything to help them in
And
that
that's not
process.
what's going to happen out here.
In this case, in Juanita Water, you have a situation where the city, their city residents, the city could easily provide water to them. We have the capacity, we have the infrastructure there, but they also have the capacity and therefore didn't want us to do that. It's their service territory, they needed to be able to do that. In this case, as I understand it, the town of Dundee needs us to provide the water there because they don't have the systems in place, the infrastructure to service this area. The customers in phases 1 through 4 are our existing customers. This is a continuation of an existing city development. So I think that there's some nuances to it that it creates some continuity of water service within there. We have the capacity to do it. We have a good working relationship with the town of Dundee. They have an outstanding utilities operation. We have an outstanding utilities operation. It's been very collaborative throughout. If at some point they're in a position to take that on, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, the agreement allows for us to sell that system off to Dundee. We would retain connection fees that we incur, we get the connection fees from these homes as they get put in there. I think this is a much more cooperative and collaborative approach to this type of issue than what we had with Eagles Landing. Eagles Landing was one of those that there really was no collaboration and cooperation is how that came to be because it was within the Juanita Water Service area.
They wouldn't want to just annex this into Winter Haven?
It's already
It's already
annexed
annexed into Dundee.
into the town of Dundee. That happened in 2004. And at this point, it's doubtful that it would meet the elements of contraction under Florida law. So the lines are set, if you will.
Okay. All right. I'm good with it.
All right, so then we're at Resolution R-2434.
All right, so that is for VMAR Dev LLC. They're requesting the commission accept certain improvements and dedication in favor of the public/City of Winter Haven as noted in the plat for Villamar Phases 6 and 6D. So this is the 116 acres generally located east and west of Rialto Road and east of the CSX Railroad line. All water lines, sewer lines, reuse lines, and related infrastructure will be owned and maintained by the city. However, all internal roadways, street lighting, and stormwater related to the infrastructure will be owned and maintained by the Villamar Community Development District. Rialto Road and its associated sidewalks and street lighting will be owned and maintained by the city. VMAR Dev LLC submitted a performance bond in the amount of $2 million, $2,014,911 to guarantee completion of all required infrastructure and improvements for the subdivision. Recent inspections by staff found all incomplete improvements are now complete and have passed all required tests and certification, and the water, wastewater, and reuse utilities can now be accepted by the city. There's no financial impact of this request. It is accepting the infrastructure and releasing the bond, and staff is recommending approval of R-2434.
Okay, thank you. R-2436.
So 36 is dealing with our construction funds. Mayor and Commissioners, you may recall that we have two construction funds, actually three if you count the transportation fund, but these have historically been aligned with bond financing, debt issuances that we've done. We've actually had more than two at some point. But right now we have a 2015 construction fund and a 2021 construction fund. Our intent with this resolution is to combine those into one construction fund. It's very difficult to manage those as two separate elements. You may recall that we've transferred funds, excess funds of surplus fund balance into one construction fund, only have to move it to another one later on. This allows us to put those both together. It makes things more efficient. It enhances our budgeting and reporting process, increases transparency. This would happen following the completion of our financial statements for this fiscal year that ends September 30th of '24. We expect that would be sometime between October and December that we would make that transition, but in future budgets, we just have the one construction fund.
Okay, thank you. 02430,
23. So I'm going to ask Eric real quick to go through these first readings as these all apply to economic opportunity and community investment.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, ordinance 02423. This is an administrative request to amend a section of Chapter 21, which are Unified Land Development Code that's related to the submittal of engineered site plans. So the city has had some sort of site plan review process in place since the late 80s. The section that we have currently in place was adopted in 2001. Still referenced things like submitting paper plans, didn't have adequate detail for what was required in those submittals and the preparation of plans. And so this is an amendment to codify how our existing process is today with electronic review and software systems that we use now, as well as defining the minimum standards for the preparation of a plan, for example, the scale that they need to submit at, and addressing suspended or abandoned development projects. So when a project goes dark for a certain period of time, and they want to restart, that would require them to resubmit their review fees and their perhaps their plans, and it defines how all that would work. So it codifies how our existing system works today. This was heard by the Planning Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval on July 9th.
all right, now we are to 02430.
02430 and 02431 are related. Note for Monday, 02430 is a public hearing because it's a large-scale transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity and other state agencies. This is a request by Peterson Myers to assign future land use. 02430 is to assign a future land use to a recently annexed parcel. It's 54.74 acres located just south of Lake Smart, north of Ware Avenue Northeast. They're requesting neighborhood suburban future land use for that property. The intent is to develop the property with approximately 210 single-family units. That is 3.7 units per acre. It is consistent with surrounding uses and developments in the area and surrounding future land uses. Again, as typical, our infrastructure capacities are noted in your staff report. It is consistent with what was previously on the property when it was in the county, which was residential low 3. The Planning Commission did hear this on July 9th, 2024, and also recommended approval of this request. There were 8 members of the public who spoke at that meeting with concerns about traffic, potential noise impacts to Lake Smart, and density and safety. And staff does recommend approval of 02430, and it's forwarding to Department of Commerce and, sorry, I said Economic Opportunity before, Department of Commerce and state and local agencies for review.
The only thing I'll say is that it's going to create, if it's ever developed, it'll create a nightmare on MLK and Avenue, and Lucerne Park Road, 544, because those are your exit escapes.
Right. And
How new is this map? This map doesn't seem very current, or is it still got Avenue T listed down there? And I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
it seems like there's been a lot more development since this.
I think the aerial is, that's from the property appraiser, so it's a few years old.
Hadn't there been more stuff built out there? Or is it?
Not really,
No,
no,
okay.
just infields. But
Yeah. So note on the transportation, as is typical, concurrency and transportation improvements will be identified at site plan review process. They are anticipating an access point onto Ware Avenue, so we do expect some traffic to disperse south down 9th Street and 9th Court to MLK, and also west along Ware Avenue to where it turns into Avenue Y and intersect with Lucerne Park Road. Also, please note that the first phase of the Lucerne Park Road improvements with FDOT go to Avenue Y, and they will be doing an intersection improvement at that intersection as well.
Plus, if we ever get the development there at 11th Street and MLK, so you got all of that right there.
Yes, sir.
Eric, do you anticipate a light there at Lucerne Park Road, just past Avenue Y, or is there going to be a light at Avenue Y, I'm sure, probably?
They- They're planning a roundabout at that section.
I'm with Mayor Birdsong. I can't imagine the traffic, what it's going to be like, all those people coming in and trying to get on Lucerne Park Road from that.
Yeah, those are
It's going to be
primarily,
a mess.
yeah, those are primarily concerns that the residents did have, or current residents in the area,
Don't
that
blame 'em.
they too, because they recognize they're living in that situation where, when you come down from school as letting out, that it is very, very challenging. So that was their major concern.
Oh, in the morning too, people coming into work from Poinciana and Haines City, everybody comes on that road. That road's always a mess in the morning.
Yes, they're going to be like you out on Thompson Nursery Road.
I will say, just as a matter of legal opinion, that, you know, the transportation level of service and the concurrency evaluation has to be conducted. And that was, Mr. Labby's department takes care of that very professionally. And from what I understand, there are no deficient levels of service created by the impacts that would be anticipated from this development. That does not mean traffic isn't a problem and that traffic isn't an issue, but legally speaking, there's no expert testimony, there's nothing before us that would allow you, in my view, to deny it based on that issue. That would sustain legal challenge. Yeah. But it's a valid concern.
It's just an observation.
And it is, and I think that Mr. Labby's point that the DOT
You still like it?
has in its project, the roundabout and the other improvements. You know, one of the issues that I would say, compatibility and consistency, those are the things that you do have a lot to say about.
Yes, yes.
And I think some did recognize that too, you know, obviously people in the area recognize that is very compatible to what's already there. I think that, but the reality is that with the increase of traffic in that area that is already, and also what is even projected, that's not even there now, that is yet to come, there, it will, and there is no relief per se, because if you're looking even into the near future, you know, there are still facilities still to be built, and also apartments as well, and even potentially other aspects of this adjacent properties could be developed as also.
Yes, sir. I would also add that we're working collaboratively with this property owner as well as the property owner to the east and two parcels to the east, which is the Willowbrook South subdivision that is south of the canal that connects the lakes there. They will be constructing a portion of a road up to around Ware Avenue, but it's on the east side of the orange groves that you see there. It will connect down into MLK. We have a comp plan policy that requires cross connection, and so at site plan review, we will require the developer of this property to dedicate right-of-way through their subdivision going east-west to facilitate a future connection to the road that will run north-south from MLK up to Lucerne Park Road, adjacent to the golf course. So we have policies and rules in place to create those connections as developers bring these projects in to increase the transportation network in the area.
Is that, what are they currently doing there? Is that part of what you're talking about, what they're currently constructing as you come on to Buckeye Loop?
Yeah, so.
Right there in that curve?
Yeah, what's called the Willowbrook subdivision has a north side and a south side, north of the canal and south of the canal. And we required in that subdivision that they dedicate public road right-of-way to us. And they will be constructing a portion of that road on the south side because they need to construct it in order to get access to the upland parcel of their property. And so the activity that you see that is.
That's giving access to those to that area.
Correct, as part of their subdivision.
So when this goes into consideration with the DOT, are they taking into consideration the volume that's currently on Lucerne Park Road, or is this property far enough away from that they wouldn't take into consideration for trips?
Yes, the trips on Lucerne Park Road would be taken into consideration in traffic analysis, because ultimately that's the state facility that it would dump onto. And we have a very close relationship with their review team. And so when this comes in for a development review committee meeting, which is kind of the first step in the site plan review process, DOT is involved. They have staff members involved in that meeting with us. And we will communicate with them that the relief, one of the reliefs for this subdivision is out to a state facility.
Yeah, I guess what I have trouble with we did the multitude of projects on Lucerne Park Road, further north and northeast, and then on North Lake Hamilton Drive, we approved that subdivision, and in discussion of all of those approvals, we always said, well, whichever one gets to the race first is the one that's gonna get in. Well, they broke ground on the one off of North Lake Hamilton Drive, so I don't know they're clearing that out and putting infrastructure in, so that's going.
Right.
The one off of Lucerne Park Road, well, that's going. So I don't.
It's a race to the plat. So you have to build at least 50% of your subdivision before you can bond and plat the subdivision. So it's a race to get to the plat. And so when the particular subdivision is at a point at which they can submit a bond and plat the subdivision, then we review the concurrency at that time. And if there's capacity, then we approve the plat and they can finish the subdivision and build homes and do the development. If at that time there is not capacity on that roadway network, then they either can only do a portion of the subdivision, can only do, maybe 30%, maybe there's only capacity for 30% of the homes, and that's all they can do at that time until there's a mechanism in place to increase capacity. Or if it's a state facility, there's an opportunity for some relief in legislation where they can, what's the term, John? They can submit mitigation dollars in order to be able to move forward. There are some mechanisms in place.
So they can
in
buy
that
their
regard.
way into
That's what
doing the
mitigation is.
project.
And I've not done one of those before, but
State
I've heard
law.
that it's extraordinarily expensive to do so.
Mitigation bank, we talked about that on our interview today. They did a mitigation bank up there in Osceola County. So I gotta tell you, this is the kind of stuff that makes me really uncomfortable. This does not improve quality of life for anybody out there. It makes it worse. And all of us get chastised for approving the subdivisions. You approve all this stuff, you don't take care of traffic, you don't put in this, you don't do blah, blah, blah. We all hear it. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Not one person out there that lives out there likes this, I would imagine, because they know what it's going to do. And we all know what's going to happen with the traffic. Even though the studies may show it's going to be okay, everybody's quality of life that's out there in that area is going to go down, not go up. Now, granted, there'll be some more homes out there and there'll be more opportunities for people to live out there in the area, but I'm just saying, these kind of things, we keep approving more and more of this stuff, and I know there's property rights, but my goodness.
Yeah, and I understand the concerns, but I would respectfully point out that the Polk County land use map, if you turn to page 7 of your fact sheet, when this was in the county, it was zoned primarily RL3, which is almost the exact same thing that we're going to assign to.
I know all that. I get all that. I know I get all that. Totally get it, but I'm just saying, we're the ones that get chastised for approving these things,
And isn't that the Winter Haven Housing Authority, is that their project there just North Avenue Y?
Yes.
Yes,
So they're gonna that's in the works to add additional homes there. And so what you could effectively do is impact your affordable housing for this project, again, because of capacity restraints. So if you do this one and it gets going before somebody else, what we're trying to accomplish with affordable housing gets impacted with this project potentially as well.
Aren't there affordable housing exemptions?
There are some exemptions for affordable housing. The affordable housing is actually an increase of 60 units. So I can imagine that an increase of 60 units would cause
Well, but-
much of a capacity issue, but.
But now you're putting 60 more cars in through that intersection, and it just,
Yeah, but the other thing to note is that the Lucerne Park Road improvements, as soon as they're in the 5-year construction CIP for FDOT, which I believe construction of the first phase is now in their 5-year CIP, any increased capacity related to those improvements can be counted.
All right. Moving right along to 02432.
So 02431 is the companion for the R3 zoning.
You
024,
said those two were the same.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
yes, sir.
companions, so to speak.
Yes, sir. 02432 is administrative request to amend the Code of Ordinances, again, Chapter 21, Article 3, Section 21, 142, and also Chapter 21, Article 8, Division 3. This is related to supporting the affordable housing efforts of the AHAC and also to clean up some existing language that is also in that section with respect to the Planning Commission and the Development Special Magistrate. The major revisions are to reduce the parking requirement for affordable housing to 1.5 parking spaces per unit. This is consistent with what we see in the affordable housing world, just around the country, really. It is some updates to language regarding Planning Commission and their appointment of members and procedures, language addressing the Development Special Magistrate and timelines for submitting applications, and then also an expedited review and fee waivers for development projects that contain affordable housing as recommended by the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. We expect there'd be a minor fiscal impact, something less than $10,000 a year associated with those fee waivers for affordable housing projects. This was heard by the Planning Commission on July 9th, and there were no public comments. They unanimously voted to recommend approval of this request.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? Then we have new business, City Commission liaisons, the reports, and then the Deputy City Manager report, the letter to Department of
Yeah.
Transportation.
So the letter to DOT, Mayor and Commissioners, I believe that's attached in you, if you open in your iPads. This is just a letter of
Yeah.
appreciation, and
Yeah.
just want to make sure you're all okay with that? So, okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to come back to you for anything. We just wanted to share that with you, that we feel it's appropriate, given the magnitude of the impacts of that project at Cypress Gardens in 17, to express appreciation to Secretary Nanum. And then
Yes.
MJ will, as an item for you.
Yes, so we are looking for a commission liaison for RFQ 2442. So that is for banking depository services. So when you open a utilities account with the city, that money goes into you have to put a deposit in, and then that money goes into a holding account. So we're looking to procure a local bank to open a non-interest-bearing account to hold those deposits. It's usually about $6.5 million a year. So we're looking for a commission liaison that would be willing to serve on that.
Non-interest bearing? Why is it gotta be non-interest bearing? That's nuts.
I'll let CJ speak to that.
Actually, we brought that, I think it was a resolution about a year ago. So when you are a customer and you have a deposit, let's say $50, you are making like per year, maybe 5 cents. And the administrative cost on that is just exorbitant with all the calculations you have to do. And we don't keep, by Florida statute, we cannot keep any of that interest income. So it just made it more simpler. If you put in $50, you'll get your $50 back.
So we can't keep the interest.
No, we
No.
can't.
Just a holding
Yeah.
account.
And part of this,
That's crazy, really.
Yeah. well,
I mean, that's crazy that the government would, the state wouldn't let us keep the interest or earn interest. It's, you're talking $6 or
Yeah,
$7
we
million
do.
bucks.
There is administrative cost on that, but yeah, we're not allowed to do that.
We're giving away a lot of, anyway.
the intent here, if I may, because it's non-interest bearing, still earns interest. Banks still benefit from having that money. And my take on that is, if we're going to have such institutions earn money off of that, I'd prefer that that happens within our own communities versus perhaps headquartered in Atlanta or New York or Chicago or wherever that is. So that's what this is all about, is trying to find a local entity. We have a number of local banks that are headquartered here in Polk County. Give them a chance to participate in that process and keep that money more local.
Can we get free checking because of it? If they're going to make all this interest off our money, maybe whoever does our checking account will give us free checking now?
So anyone would like to?
I just have a question. Could we credit
take
their
that.
account by 5 cents? Because it'd be so much to mail it or do anything like that.
You can, but the administrative challenge, just
Keep up with
the
it.
amount of time and energy and effort that it takes to manage that and the benefit that's realized is just, that's why we went to that non-interest bearing account at the time we did. So again, this is just reviewing the proposals that will
Yes,
come in
we've
for that.
tried it and we've
Yeah.
talked about it. And
I will say that
just can't do it.
any of you can participate as the liaison if you're so interested, except for being appropriate for Commissioner Yates to
Yeah,
do so,
Yates
since he
can.
is employed in the banking industry locally.
I'll do it unless somebody else wants to do it.
All
I
right.
really don't care, but I'm
You
happy
got
to do
it.
it.
Brad Dantzler.
You want to do it?
No.
Brad has,
I'll do it.
Thank you, guys.
You get to work with our amazing finance team in the process.
They are the bomb. They're great.
all right, so emergency matters not received for the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there's a possibility I will not be here Monday night, just putting you guys on notice, so.
Another interview?
I'm interviewing for the Auburndale City Commission.
Motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned.